As the airborne landings settled into a loose ring across the Dutch countryside, the success of Operation Market Garden depended on one crucial task: pushing a narrow road column north as fast as possible. In Veghel, on the 17th of September 1944, that concept briefly became reality. At this crossroads on the edge of town, two Allied formations met after the bridge over the Zuid-Willemsvaart had been captured. The road is crowded with helmets and packs, vehicles pulled up at the side, and curious civilians edging closer to the soldiers who have turned their industrial town into a staging point for the advance. When you stand in the same spot today, the scene is almost unrecognizable. The junction has been widened into a modern road, lined by a business park and traffic signs, and the space once filled with marching men is now given over to passing cars. Almost the only things that truly link both images are the two small houses in the background, still sitting, where they did in 1944. Everything else has shifted around them, but those buildings remain as quiet witnesses to the day when Veghel briefly became the heartbeat of the Allied corridor into the Netherlands. From Veghel, the road north carried the Allies deeper into territory that had lived under occupation for more than 4 years. Only a day after the first link-ups along the canal, scenes like this one appeared in Eindhoven, where members of the local resistance stepped out of the shadows and into the open for the first time. In this photograph, taken in the heart of the city, they stand beside American paratroopers of the 101st Airborne. Some wear armbands marking their role, others still carry the tension of men who had spent years living double lives. Behind them rises the facade of one of Eindhoven's great churches, a backdrop that had watched the occupiers come and now watched them driven out. Today, the same spot is almost silent. The square has been cleared, resurfaced, and modernized, its edges wrapped in scaffolding and protective sheeting as the old buildings continue to be restored. Yet the church behind them remains unmistakable, its stone figures and arches unchanged since the day this photograph was taken. It is the one element that bridges the two moments, a reminder that while the faces and uniforms have vanished, the place where resistance met liberation still stands exactly where it did in 1944. From here, the Allied column pushed onward, following the narrow road north that would soon earn a name the soldiers would never forget: Hell's Highway. Leaving Eindhoven behind, the road north tightened once again into the narrow corridor the Allies were desperately trying to hold open. In Veghel, scenes like this played out hour after hour as American paratroopers of the 101st Airborne pushed through the town with whatever transport they could find. Here on Dekken van Meertstraat, a small handcart has become their supply vehicle, loaded with equipment and pushed along the cobblestones by men who, like everyone in the division, had landed miles from their intended drop zones and were still gathering what they needed to fight. Civilians watch from the doorways, some cautiously, some with open curiosity, as the line of paratroopers moves past their homes. For a town that had lived under occupation for years, the sight of these men, tired but determined, marked a turning point. The Allies were here, and they were moving fast. Today, the same street is almost unrecognizable. The cobbles have been replaced by smooth brick paving, modern houses fill the far end of the road, and the noise of marching boots has given way to quiet residential stillness. But the building on the right with its tall, narrow windows and decorative brickwork is still there. It anchors both images together, the one surviving piece of architecture linking a street filled with advancing paratroopers to the calm neighborhood it has become. North of Veghel, the road toward Eindhoven tightened again as the Irish Guards pushed through the village of Aalst on the 18th of September, 1944. In this photograph, their tracked carriers move up the main street with an anti-tank gun in tow. 2 crewmen sit on top of the lead vehicle, their gear piled around them, while the buildings on the right show the impact of recent fighting, a shattered window, torn brickwork, and a damaged awning above what had once been a shop. Further along the street, several Dutch flags hang from the houses, marking the path the troops are advancing along. In the present-day view, almost everything has changed. The wartime houses on the left have been replaced, the road has been widened and modernized, and traffic lights now stand at the junction where the carriers once passed. Construction fencing, equipment, and temporary structures dominate the scene, leaving only the shape of the street and a few familiar rooftops in the distance to link these two moments in time. In Schijndel, the advance of British armour pressed through the narrow heart of the town. This photograph, taken at the corner of the Hoofstraat and the Pompstraat, shows infantry of the British forces moving behind a tank as it pushes up the tight roadway. Soldiers stand along both sides of the street, some taking cover against the walls, others preparing to move forward as the vehicle leads the way. The shop at the left edge of the frame, with its wide front windows and faded lettering above the awning, anchors the scene in the cramped centre of town. Today, the same intersection feels far more open, but the line of the street remains familiar. The older shopfront on the left has been replaced by a modern clothing store, and the facades further down the street have been renovated or entirely rebuilt. New paving and lighting now frame a quiet pedestrian zone where the armoured column once squeezed through. Only the direction of the street and the proximity of the buildings echo. The image from 1944, a reminder that even the tightest corners of Schijndel were part of the long, uncertain push north during Operation Market Garden. A short distance from the centre of Schijndel, another moment from the closing days of Operation Market Garden was captured on the 26th of October, 1944. Here, a long line of men from the King's Shropshire Light Infantry marches back from the front line for a brief 4-day rest. The soldiers move in single file along the edge of a dirt road, each man carrying his rifle slung over his shoulder and a shovel strapped to his gear. Their faces are tired but compose the posture of men who have been in the field for weeks and finally have a pause ahead of them. Today, that same church tower remains the clearest link to the wartime photograph, still standing in almost the exact position as before, but everything around it has changed. The dirt road has become a paved walkway, and modern brick buildings line the area where the soldiers once marched. Trimmed hedges, lampposts, and parked cars now fill the open ground that once bordered the road. Only the church, tower unchanged in shape and height, anchors this quiet modern street to the moment when the King's Shropshire Light Infantry finally walked away from the front for a few days of badly needed rest. In Deurne, the push toward Gemert brought the 11th Armoured Division straight through the centre of town. The photograph captures a tight column of Sherman tanks edging forward between the brick houses, commanders standing high in their hatches and crews scanning the road ahead. Every tank is loaded down with gear, spare track links, tarps, and stowed equipment while more vehicles follow close behind, their barrels pointing down the same narrow street. Today, the noise and weight of that column are long gone, but parts of the scene remain recognizable. The houses on the left still match the wartime view, and the curve of the street is unchanged. What was once a route for armour pushing deeper into the Netherlands is now a calm neighbourhood corner, its wartime role visible only when the two images are placed side by side. Farther north in Arnhem, the street fighting pressed right up against the houses. In this photograph, German panzer grenadiers stand close to a row of tall, narrow buildings, the men gathered beneath windows that have been blown open by the fighting. The upper floors show the damage clearly glass gone, frames splintered, curtains hanging through the openings. The soldiers are paused just long enough to regroup before pushing on through the curved street. In the present-day view, the same buildings still follow that same bend in the road. Their facades have been repaired and repainted, but the height, the spacing of the windows, and the line of the street make it unmistakably the same place now quiet, but once part of the brutal struggle for Arnhem in 1944. As the battle for Arnhem dragged into its final days, scenes like this marked the shifting momentum. In the wartime photograph, a Churchill AVRE stands in the street, its crew gathered on and around the vehicle. To the right, A group of German prisoners is marched past the tank with their hands raised, escorted by British troops. Behind them, the tall houses lining the street show broken shutters and shattered windows, the fighting having left its mark on the whole row. In the present-day view, that same line of houses still stands, their facades repaired and repainted. The street is quiet now, with cars parked where the AVRE once stood, and the road surface replaced long ago. Only the distinctive shapes and spacing of the buildings confirm that this peaceful stretch of Arnhem is the same place where prisoners once walked under armed guard in April 1945.